Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the table. It's me, your host, Shannon, joined, of course, by my co-host, Katelynn.
Bonjour.
I'm going with the French intro today. Love it. And our special guest today is Ethan.
Guten Abend. I
Nice.
I had to counter the French with the German.
I expect
Of
nothing
course.
less.
Amazing. So, Ethan met me in college. I'm trying to remember when now. I think it was probably sophomore year when we were doing the musical together.
Yes. That probably would have been it because our sophomore year that was Footloose, and you were directing that, and I was acting in it.
Yeah.
Right. So we probably met there,
Yes.
but we didn't. But we didn't really
We,
interact all that much outside of just actor directors. I recall. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think so. I think it picked up the most senior year. He was my co-director in crime for another musical that we did, 9 to 5. So we were both directing that one, and now he actively DMs a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that some of us are doing from school. Yeah, cool. I think that covers like our background more or less. His favorite food, he recently made a stew with tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, probably another ingredient that I'm missing, but it was topped with Greek yogurt, and he said it was delightful.
Is there a name for that soup or stew?
I've just in my head I've just kind of been calling it kitchen sink stew because
Nice.
because I
I love
literally
that name.
because all I do when I make it, and I make it pretty much every other week. I actually just went shopping today. I go grocery shopping every 2 weeks, and usually what I do is I basically cook like something big that I would use as leftovers for the week, and then I decide on smaller meals throughout the week. But
Mm.
anyway, so usually the first thing I do is I make this kind of stew, and it starts with cooking up a whole bag of beans, and I switch between navy beans and small red beans. I prefer the red beans honestly, but I cook up red beans, and then I'll usually cut up a whole yellow onion or a couple of red potatoes. Wait, sorry, sorry. I'll usually either go for like one of those big honkin' like Yukon Gold potatoes or like an equal amount of red potatoes. I'll cut those up. Cut up some carrots. I'll fry those. Well, not fry, but I'll cook them in some olive oil. I'll slice up some yellow onions into little half circles. Toss those in. Usually toss in a couple cloves of garlic for good measure, and then I usually put in just a whole can of diced tomatoes. I really don't have a set amount that I do. Usually the recipe, if you can call it that, usually consists of one or two whole potatoes, one whole yellow onion, and then like 4 or 5 carrots depending on the size. Uh, Usually like a whole bag of beans to be served on the side whenever I dish it out, and then just a can of diced tomatoes I pick up every 2 weeks. And yes, this last stew that I made, I decided to try topping it with Greek yogurt and dillweed because I had tried something similar like about a year or so ago because my mother had signed up myself and my brother to this to one of those recipe delivery services like it was Sunbasket.
Mm.
She signed us up for Sunbasket, and so one of the
Yep.
meals was like a chickpea avocado whatever the heck with Greek yogurt and dill. And so the other day I decided to try it for myself, and who I was not disappointed. It was absolutely wonderful. I don't mean to sound like I'm just like stroking my ego, but I'm really happy with how it came out.
Yeah, no, definitely be proud of cooking because you'd be surprised how many people either don't, refuse to, or like really wish they liked it. And it's great to like cooking and to want to do it and to enjoy what you make.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
I'm happy for you. That sounds absolutely delicious.
mm,
Right?
It's also nice. It's also nice too because I'm getting like a good s- a good spread. I think, at least I hope, a good spread of different kinds of foods in there because I'm getting root vegetables and whatnot. Got carrots. Oh, I almost forgot. I usually will also try to toss in some baby spinach. I almost forgot the baby spinach. I usually toss
Baby
that.
spinach is perfect in soups. I put it in soup all the time because it's the easiest way to eat spinach. You don't even taste it.
Oh, it's
Mm.
absolutely fantastic. I toss it in with pasta all the time too. Same thing. It just
Hmm.
and wilts, and you can't even taste it. It's fantastic.
So, is there a difference between baby spinach and adult spinach?
Uh,
Like, it sounds like a joke of a question, but genuinely, I am curious.
The way you worded it was priceless. I think it's just smaller leaves. Ethan can correct me, but I think that's what it is.
I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I think baby spinach is just. I'm not sure if this is the right way of phrasing it, but I think it's just, yeah, it's either spinach that's just not as big, or it's just like harvested a little bit earlier, so it's not as, I guess, grown maybe. But but
Oh, okay.
that'd be my thinking at least.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, oh, he nailed it. Yeah, baby spinach is just harvested a little sooner.
Ah, well, there you go.
Yeah. There you go. I Googled it. Love Google. Um, I commend your ability to meal plan to the extent um that you go grocery shopping once every 2 weeks. Because even with like a meal plan or like meal prepping or whatever, I go to the grocery store like twice a week, and I still live with my family who goes grocery shopping separately. Like we always have food, and I always go grocery shopping.
I mean, it does help that I live by myself, and so it's only me that's eating the food, and sometimes a friend of mine who comes over once a week or so.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I can't wait.
and the other nice thing is that I have, well, the nice thing is that I have a kind of unique diet in my family. Well, not unique, but my brother is a very, very picky eater, to put it lightly. And his girlfriend who lives with him, occasionally they'll swing by. Um, she is she has a diet similar to mine, but she is much, much, much careful and much more careful and much more strict about it. So she can't really deviate with stuff that I prepare, which in a way works for me because I know that when I make a certain stew, it'll last me, 6 or 5 or 6 meals, depending on if I have bread with it, or if I have extra beans with it, or whatever the case. But yeah, meal planning is definitely like it's definitely nice to be able to do that, especially with a vegetarian diet. Because, well, no, I shouldn't say that because you can do it with any diet. But and there I go
Yeah,
again.
but still.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you would make the second vegetarian we've had on the show, which is cool.
Oh, lovely.
Um, yeah. Um, the other one was Susrita, who Shannon and I have known since like essentially pre-K or kindergarten at least. Um, but yeah, I don't know any other ones on my side, so I'm glad to have known another one because a great way to get introduced to new foods and stuff. The people who have different diet restrictions than you,
Hmm.
sometimes for health reasons or just like moral or just preference reasons.
Yeah.
So like that soup sounds awesome, and
Hmm.
I'd be so like quick to put chicken in it, but like I'm sure it's completely flavorful without it. And there's so many things that go into it, which is awesome.
I mean, if you were to add chicken to it, honestly, I think it would be really great if you did like a curry style chicken with it, something with like
Ooh.
turmeric or curry powder. I
Mm-hmm.
I think that would work really well with it.
Yeah.
Mm, nice.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious too, even if you are open to talking about it. Did you decide to be vegetarian or did you grow up that way or?
It was very much a decision. Uh, I made the decision while I was in college. Up until then I was eating. Up until then we were very much a meat eating family. We would have sausage, hot dogs, hamburgers, And again, my brother is a picky eater, so he usually will have a hot dog with ketchup and a burger with ketchup every time there was a barbecue or a cookout. And so and so and and so while I might have been having like a grilled chicken sandwich burger thing with every single condiment imaginable, he'd be over there again with just the burger and the hot dog. And the other thing too is that my brother and the rest of the family too was really, or sorry, my brother is really into steak, and my dad and my mom like going out to restaurants like that. So so long story short, we were very much a meat eating family growing up. But then when I was in college around my sophomore year, a couple of things happened. Um, one, my dad had a heart scare, and my father is, we'd like to playfully call him a control enthusiast. And in this instance, after having this scare with his heart, because he was around 50 at the time, and the idea of and and the idea of not being able to ride a mountain bike 10 miles a day, so that was kind of hard for him to really truthfully accept. So to take better care of himself and ensure that he didn't have heart problems, he looked into a lot of other diets, specifically a lot of plant-based whole food diets. So he got really into cooking beans. He would do a lot with greens. Again, you know, uh, plant-based whole foods. And around that same time, I, like a lot of college students, was having the reckoning of, oh my gosh, the world is actually not very pretty. And so and so, out of a decision to not really support the factory farming industry, that supports the meat industry, I decided to go vegetarian. I technically went vegetarian twice, because the first time I did it, I actually did it wrong. I did it extremely wrong.
You did it
because
wrong? Wait, what does that mean?
so So whenever you switch your diet, one, you almost never want to do it instantaneously, and two, you have to make sure that you're still getting the same, if not in some cases more of the nutrients than you were previously getting. So in my case, I just cut out meat entirely, just like instantly. And
Mhm.
I didn't go about trying to fill that void in my nutrient intake where the meat had been. And so as a result, I ended up getting very underweight, about 30 pounds under what I was supposed to weigh. Given how,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I was like 5'10" and weighed about 100, 138 thereabouts. Yeah, I was very underweight, but and so then I got back into eating meat briefly to get back to a healthy weight, and then I did it again, only this time I did it correctly. I did it gradually. So the first thing I did was I cut out red meat, so no beef, no bacon, no pork, none of that, but I kept
Mhm.
white meat, mainly poultry. And then from there, I cut out breaded poultry and went only with like grilled or fried chicken. I'm sorry, no, only grilled, not fried. And then in so doing, one, it allowed me to like find other alternatives to fill in for the meat. And what I found was that going for other animal products like eggs, or increasing my intake of cheese or dairy, usually helped offset it. And another thing that made this a little tricky for me is that I had then and still have now a pretty fast metabolism, where if I was to go vegan, I would have to eat so much more stuff, because dairy just packs so much fat in it that dairy is a major reason I'm convinced that I'm staying around a healthy weight that I am. But I'm getting off track. Second time I'm vegetarian, cut out red meat, then white meat, and I started getting into stir fries. And so
Ooh.
I spent a summer living on campus because I was working in the on-campus archives, and I got really into making stir fries for myself. And I would and I would kind of bounce between doing like Italian stuff for 1 week, so lots of pasta and cheese and sauce, that kind of thing, and then stir
Hmm.
fries with peppers and onions and stuff. And 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 yeah, when I would go home, my dad, who was on a very similar like plant-based diet, he would always have there would always be something that my mom could make or throw together, or that my dad had with whatever he was doing. Although funny enough, my dad tended to fall off the wagon more than I did, but that's another story. And and then just since then I've been trying to like since then I've been trying to find a way to like cook for myself, and a way to have a diet that really works for myself. And I think I'm really getting there with this with this weekly stew that I'm doing now. But it's kind of a long-winded way of saying that yes, I chose to be vegetarian, primarily out of a moral reason, but also because my career that I want to go into is going to be largely sedentary. And if I can not worry as much about cholesterol, then that's a win-win.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. It's great to hear that, you tried something and realized, hey, that's not the healthy way to do it, and then backtracked. I think that's really important when you're trying to figure out what works with your body and figuring that out. But yeah, no, it sounds like you've put in a lot of thought and effort into it, so hopefully it's working for you and you're finding some good stuff to eat. Sounds like you are.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, it's been going pretty well so far. The only downside with it is that it can get pricey, because unfortunately vegetarianism and veganism are pretty much becoming the go-to for a lot of trendy young folk. And so if there's ever a restaurant that has vegetarian or vegan options, like there's one just over in Bristol, Rhode Island called what is it, Basil and Bunny. It's good stuff. It's fantastic stuff. It tastes great, and everything is plant based, but it just gets really, really pricey. And and to be fair, eating out's always pricey, but especially if you're going to a dedicated vegetarian restaurant, it's always going to be super pricey. It's always going to be. Uh,
Mm.
and and then the other thing that's occasionally kind of irritating is that my family still likes to go to steakhouses, and my brother will always get the exact same filet mignon every time. And if he likes a filet mignon, he's getting the filet mignon from that place. And my op and and perusing a menu of like filet mignon, New York style flat iron steak. Oh, no, another important distinction. I've I've told this to a lot of people actually who've asked. A lot of people ask if I eat seafood or not, and the answer is I do not. So so like when so I'm trying to remember the specific name for people who don't eat like red or white meat but eat fish. Pescatarians, that's it. Pescatarian. But yeah, and that's another restriction. Is that because I don't eat fish or shellfish, partially because I'm allergic to shrimp, that also further limits my options when going out to eat, particularly at a place like a steakhouse or a burger joint,
Right.
where there's not really a whole lot of strictly vegetarian options aside from mac and cheese or maybe some kind of lasagna. But even then that's usually tucked away somewhere underneath piles and piles of of lobster mac and shrimp scampi and all that wonderful stuff. But
Yeah, it seems like at those type of places, they'll be like, "Yeah, we have vegetarian options," and then it's a fish or like a single kid's pasta. You're like, "That's not what I want, restaurant."
to be fair, not a whole lot of rest. I mean, to be fair, a lot of those restaurants don't really cater to a vegetarian crowd, so I really can't blame them, because it wouldn't be in their interest to have a lot of vegetarian options. But it's just something that kind of irritates me every now and then, where okay, we go out to this restaurant every time, and I can only ever get one or two things, and neither one of them is particularly great. I, I
Hmm.
shouldn't I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that, but I'll give you an example. Last year for Easter, we went to this restaurant in Warren, the Wharf Tavern, and wait, no, sorry, it was Thanksgiving. Sorry, it was for Thanksgiving, not Easter, but same difference, Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And they had and in typical fashion, they do this every year. They have their regular like weekly menu, and then they have their holiday like specific menus, which are much smaller because they're expecting a lot more people to come in around the holidays, and so they want to be able to prepare like X amount of meals more quickly, so they can focus in on it, whatever.
Yep.
And my options, as I recall, were literally between two things. It was a kid's pasta which was just rigatoni and marinara sauce, or, and I know I'm gonna screw up this name, but it was like a pumpkin ravioli
Oh.
with it was a pumpkin ravioli with pecans, I want to say. Very like, I'm not sure if unusual is the right word, but it's very interesting combination of things, and and don't get me wrong, it was definitely good to have. I mean, certainly compared to like pasta marinara, but it's definitely like a good dish to have. But considering that was my only other option aside from ordering off the kids menu, that's just it just kind of it's just mildly irritating, and uh, I will
Yeah,
say
it takes the fun out of like family dinner when like
it exactly.
it's like, here's the thing that we put on the menu basically for legal reasons. Just to
I
have like a vegetarian option, let alone like if there was a vegan option.
I that I mean, to be fair, I think that pumpkin one probably could have been vegan if they tried, uh, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one reason. I mean, that's one reason why I really like pizza joints, just like simple, straight pizza joints, because the meat is the add-on most of the time. Like you get a pizza with meat on it, and it's just super easy to say no, I don't want the meat on it. It's just very simple to say that, as opposed to other places where like especially the like higher class you get, if you will, with a given restaurant, the meat becomes more and more intertwined with the meal and impossible to separate. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
waxing. I feel like I'm waxing philosophical, but yeah,
No, that's such a good point, though. Do you have a go-to pizza topping?
margarita,
Mm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite
Mar-
pizza.
margarita pizza. That is my go-to every time.
Like similarly, like margarita paninis are like my favorite sandwich.
Hmm.
Just ciabatta bread with like the pesto and the tomato and the cheese in it. So good.
Ooh, that sounds great.
Oh, I've never had it in panini form.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you which one is better because like the flavors are inherently the same, but you get like the nice crunch of ciabatta bread that you don't really get with pizza.
Hmm.
I think pizza can very quickly become too soggy, in my opinion. Um, but I also don't like flatbread, like super crispy pizza either. So like, there's a happy medium for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oh, I have an important question. So, you guys both know and enjoy margarita pizza. Does it have whole tomatoes on it when you think of it?
Yeah.
yep. Or at least like, or at least like chunks of tomato. Yeah.
Okay, I'm so embarrassed because
Why?
I thought margarita pizza was just like piles of sauce and then the cheese. So I was at like a work dinner and I ordered the margarita pizza and it just had like whole slabs of tomato on it. And I was like, mm-hmm.
Which you love.
Which yep, not a fan. So in front of all of my coworkers that I like, some of them I just met earlier that day, they just watched me like individually pick off each tomato as I ate a slice.
Uh, I'm,
Yeah, a
It was
lot of margaritas.
delicious, but I was like, I wasn't aware.
A lot of the ones I've had tend to have a very thin layer of marinara sauce on it. I think probably just because it's a cheaper crust and like I get them from cheaper. I don't go gourmet very often. Um, but then there's like slices of tomato on top of it.
Mhm.
But I think that's what it's supposed to be. And then like sometimes it's like a balsamic that's used as like the sauce equivalent.
Hmm. I think it also depends on where you go, because I've had margarita pizzas like the one you described, where it's like 80% sauce, 10% crust, and like 5% cheese and 5% sauce. I'm sorry, and like 5% balsamic. But I've also been to places where there's like a lot more cheese on it and a lot more sauce drizzled like all the way across it too. So I think it depends on where you go. I mean,
Yeah.
my general
I like when
experience. Yeah.
Oh,
Nope. Sorry. Go ahead.
we have collided. I like when instead of just basil, it's like a pesto, and they paint that on as the sauce, and then there's like the thin tomato slices and the mozzarella, and then balsamic on top. So when I make it, that's usually how I go about it.
Mm. I actually had one the other day that was made with grape tomatoes, like sliced on top,
Ugh,
and and
sorry.
That's a visceral reaction.
I hate small tomatoes.
so, it was made with grape tomatoes on top, sliced and cooked and whatnot. But they were out of basil, so it didn't have any basil on it.
Oh no.
Which I mean, it's still I mean, it's still a pizza, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's the spice. Like, you gotta have some sort of like basil alternative. Like, at least give me some like dried oregano on it at that point. Give me an herb.
Mm, yeah, but
Yeah. They actually had pizza at work today. And I grabbed like one teeny little slice because I can't pass up pizza. And I had like mostly the salad instead. And they had margarita pizza, and it was the saddest looking margarita pizza I've ever seen. It's like, if you get it from like a standard like hometown pizza place, it's really hit or miss, because they're just gonna put regular sauce on it, replace their shredded cheese with mozzarella like coins, and then throw 3 basil leaves on it, and they're gonna call it a day. I think for me, like, the balsamic and the pesto is like the killer for me, and that's what I want. So usually when you get it from like a sit down restaurant and it's like served on a cutting board, like that's the good shit.
I disagree personally. I disagree.
Really?
I do disagree, and this is because of a very specific margarita pizza that I have had only twice, and only twice have I thought that I tasted perfection.
Oh.
Were they both hometown pizza places?
Well, not exactly hometown, but the next town over from my hometown, so close enough.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yes.
it's someone's hometown.
It's someone's home.
But yeah, and that kind of margarita pizza is the one where there's really not a whole lot of cheese on it. When the cheese is like a sideshow to the tomato and the sauce and the basil, and the balsamic is really really good. I also have facial hair, and balsamic does not like my facial hair. So
It's flavor for later.
I'm gonna ask
The
you never
beard
to use
season.
that collection. I'm gonna ask you never to use that collection of words again, because that's just no, just absolute, just having.
I will use that again, just not with you.
Just getting something stuck in your beard. It sounds like it would be pleasant if it's a pleasant thing, but if it's pizza grease, you would disagree after about 5 minutes.
Ooh.
But anyway, this margarita pizza, it's your standard, round shape, standard round pizza. Not a whole lot of mozzarella. Like, I don't even think they have any balsamic glaze on it. It's just the tomatoes, the sauce, and a little bit of cheese, and just a little bit of what you call it, a little bit of basil thrown in there, and it is just absolutely wonderful. And it's the kind of pizza that I absolutely love to eat with fork and knife, because then I can gather it up just right on the fork and get just the right mouthful, instead of taking a bite and pulling off half a tomato or pulling off like 4/5 of the cheese and having to struggle to get it to not touch my face and beard. But
Yeah.
Genuinely, eating pizza with a fork and knife is underrated.
I did.
Yes.
Honestly,
I
it is.
agree.
It
People
honestly
look at you like
is.
you're crazy for it. I'm like, but I got the perfect bite every time, and you're here covered in cheese.
Exactly. That is absolutely the reason to eat with fork and knife. That is absolutely it.
Uh,
Like I won't do it like at a party or something because like I'm not gonna go like, hey, do you have a fork and knife while they're serving pizza to everybody? But in
Well,
my
yeah.
house, like if you're going as far as to put pizza on a plate, I think it's worth getting a fork and knife. Otherwise, just hold it in your hands in a napkin.
Mm.
You're gonna get covered in grease anyway.
Oh, the other thing. Oh, the other way that I tend to eat pizza, if not with fork and knife, is that what I'll do is I will fold it in half, kind of like a taco, and I'll tip it vertically so that way the grease can kind of like, drop off. And sometimes I'll squeeze it and like almost wring, like almost wring it out to get it.
I
Oh,
do that. I dab pizza. I'll get like a napkin and dab the grease off the top if it's too greasy. I'm here for the cheese and the sauce. I'm not here for the oil.
Yep.
yeah. No, that makes sense, but I do really love the image of Ethan just like wringing out a piece of pizza.
Just squeezing it.
Just really making
I
sure
only,
it's.
to be fair, I only do that when it is like exceptionally greasy. Like when I pick it up and it's already drooping over my thumb and into the palm of my hand, I know that's too much grease.
Mhm.
Yeah. Basically, if you tip the pizza over and grease starts like dripping off before the cheese starts falling off, I think it's too greasy.
If you can swim on top of the pizza, that's too much grease.
I found that like a lot of traditional like Italian style pizza has a lot more grease because they actually do like put oil on it, like on the
Mhm.
crust. Which for flavor wise, 10 out of 10.
Mm.
I just find it's just a me thing. That I think it's a little much sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair. It can be.
But yeah, I mean, I'm also like the queen of weird food decisions, so honestly, who cares? I mean, I had a cup of plain white rice for dinner today, so.
What?
There it is. I intend to go make some asparagus later. But because we're recording at a different time, I just like scrambled to make dinner. And I made like a little cup of sushi rice with some vinegar on it, and it was really good. Is it low carb? Absolutely not. But it does fit into my diet for today.
Gotcha. Okay. You just led with a cup of white rice, and I was like, was there like a spice of
No.
any flavor?
There's a little bit of vinegar just because you use vinegar to make it. That's it.
Okay.
I wish I was joking, but I don't wish I had something else because it was damn good.
Hey,
I am pleased by the simple things.
I mean, hey, if a cup of rice is what it takes you to be happy, then get that cup of rice.
Exactly.
I am
Sometimes
very excited for my
happiness wins
asparagus,
with
though.
food decisions.
Yes, that is how I run my life with food. And it doesn't always lead to the healthiest decisions, but I've been working on that this year, like a lot. Not that the scale has moved at all, but that's for another day. But I've enjoyed a lot more different foods this year and like more mindful eating and cooking that isn't like I'm not trying to like lose 100 pounds. I'm just trying to be healthier, like in general.
Mm-hmm.
The weight thing is a bonus, but
yep.
Yeah, a lot of different foods. I've made a lot of different soups, which have been very good. I did try something called fathead dough, which is a keto dough that they make. You can make anything out of, really. You can make pretzel bites, you can make pizza crust, like garlic bread, and it is disgusting. I'm sorry. It's like 50% mozzarella cheese, and I thought it would be great, and it's just not good. The aftertaste sucks. To those who love it, power to you. I'm good just giving that bread alternative up altogether.
Wait. So it's like a bread substitute, or is it made from different grains, or like what's the deal?
Yeah, so it's a keto form of quote unquote bread dough. So it's almond flour instead of regular flour. So that takes a lot of the carbs out doing it that way, but it also you lose gluten.
Huh.
So what holds it together is 3 cups of mozzarella cheese to every 1 cup of flour, an egg, and a little bit of cream cheese. I don't even know why the cream cheese is in there.
I mean, I feel like at that point, wait, so you're just exchanging carbs for dairy.
Yeah, and that's what keto, if you go hard keto, that's what it is. You basically replace your carbs with fat and your body burns the fat faster, and because fat's a quick burning energy and carbs are a slow burning energy, because you've taken out the slow burn, your body gets to burning your own fat reserves faster.
Huh.
And it avoids burning muscle. It burns just your fat if you do it correctly. But it's a hard change if you go full keto. I did not. I'm like low carb. Not that my cup of rice says a lot about that. But I didn't have many carbs otherwise today.
Huh.
Maybe that tiny little slice of pizza.
Huh.
But I had eggs otherwise, and eggs are low carb.
Right.
And I'll have my asparagus later. But yeah, that's like very rudimentary how it works. So they encourage a lot of fat because you need energy somehow. If you're not having carbs or fat, you're malnourishing yourself. Which, like, even like you said, like switching your diet like crazy like that is not a good thing to do. So that's why they encourage like a slow change toward more fat. And they love, like, you can eat bacon and cheese and stuff, but you give up bread, crackers, popcorn, carrots, potatoes. This thing, a lot of fruit and vegetables you can't have on keto, which really bummed me out because I'd rather have that. Like an apple, like had 1/3 of my daily carbs in it.
Jeez.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't even have like a tortilla with my fajita tonight. But I got to get back into making stir fries, which kind of brings us full circle here because Ethan had mentioned it earlier. I love stir fry. I usually do make it with chicken and noodles, but I'd love to try like a full veggie one just as like a way to eat more veggies because I definitely need more variety of veggies. I eat some and eat them often, but not a lot of different ones. And I would like to get into eating more different ones than just like asparagus and carrots and broccoli.
Right. Right. See, when I was in college, my go-to stir fry was brown rice, cooked and cooked and whatnot. Do that. I would do up some onion. So onions. I would usually either go, well, at least now I usually go between either red or yellow onion, and it depends on how quickly I'm going to eat it. Because if I'm going to have like the whole serving that I'm making in one sitting or 2 sittings, I'll go with the red onion all the way. I prefer the taste of red onion. However, red onion really, really does not do well in leftovers, but yellow onion does. So my go-to would usually be to go for red onions because I'd be making smaller portions for just myself over like 2 or 3 days. But with these bigger portions I'm making, I usually go yellow onion. Anyway, my go-to stir fry: onion, broccoli, cauliflower. If I could, I would try to steam the broccoli and cauliflower so they weren't as crunchy and were a little softer. I would usually end up searing some green or red pepper, sometimes both if I had them on hand. And then usually I would toss in some diced garlic and cook that in there too, just to give it a little bit of a little bit of a spice to it if the onion didn't do it. And yeah, I would usually put some soy sauce over the top, depending. Um, and then beans. Pretty much, beans go with almost anything, and they're like a good source, of like non-meat based protein. So just throw some beans in or next to something, and boom, you got a pretty like decent a pretty decent stir fry ahead of you.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good variety of like things that I wouldn't normally have. Besides, like I have onions like all the time. I love onions.
Yeah.
But you think like traditionally like it's onions, broccoli, and like bell peppers.
Mm.
And while I do enjoy that, I really need to force myself to eat cauliflower because I have yet to make cauliflower in a way that I have enjoyed.
Mm.
But I'm determined to find a way to enjoy cauliflower because I'm sure I'll find it.
I mean, for me, I found it perfect. I found it perfectly acceptable when it was drowning in rice and onions and peppers. I found it, I mean, that was how I got. That was how I got my cauliflower in, and yeah, that worked for me.
Yeah.
Oh, and mushrooms. I would love to throw in mushrooms every now and then as well.
Oh, I wish I liked mushrooms.
I
I
always
can't.
forget about mushrooms.
Yeah.
I
can't.
don't mind them, but I just never think to put them in things.
That's fair.
I do want to try. There's a certain type of mushroom, and I can't remember it at the moment. It's like king something mushroom, I think, but it's supposed to resemble the shape and texture of a scallop, and I love scallops.
Oh.
I could go full like pescatarian. I think way easier than I could go vegetarian. I love seafood and fish in almost all of its forms. But to have like something that I could cook up and put a nice like glaze on, and it's just straight mushroom, I would love to try. I love drawing mushrooms. My screensaver is mushrooms. I am going to sell a shirt covered in mushrooms at some point, but I do not eat them.
Is what you're talking? Are you talking about the king oyster mushroom by chance?
It could be, but aren't the like oyster mushrooms are like they're shaped like a shelf, aren't they? Maybe I have that wrong. Man, I have a shirt that labels 9 of them and I can't remember.
No, I think that's right. I'm seeing a king trumpet oyster mushroom.
That's the one that tastes like scallops or is supposed to resemble scallops?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe it's that one then. My dad loves mushrooms and he's tried to get me to like them in a few different ways. And I haven't found it yet. And again, I'm trying not to be stubborn, but I'm a little bit more stubborn on mushrooms than most things.
Has he tried portobello?
Yes, actually that was the one time I had a mushroom experience that I didn't hate.
Hey.
But he also covered it in steak sauce, so is that cheating? Probably.
Really, because I personally I can't stand portobello mushrooms.
Really?
I can't. No, I absolutely I do not like portobello mushrooms.
Okay.
What I do like, and I've only had these. I only had these when I was in Germany. Chanterelles. Absolutely loved having chanterelles. Like, oh, they were absolutely fantastic.
They're really pretty too.
They are. Those.
I love mushrooms aesthetically.
Now they are really cool.
They almost look like they belong under the sea.
Yeah. Well, actually, you want a little bit of mushroom-related folklore?
Absolutely, I do. I love that you have that in your back pocket.
Well, yeah. I picked this up at my job. So you know how mushrooms they tend to grow in like a kind of ring almost, or like in circles.
Yeah.
Okay, well, way back in the day, those like rings of mushrooms used to be called fairy circles, and there.
Oh, I knew this.
Yeah, and there was this kind of superstition around it where there's one of those things parents told their kids where if you stepped into the middle, fairies would basically open up a portal when you stepped into it and take you into the fairy world where you'd never be seen again.
Oh my god, that took a wild left turn into the dark.
That honestly, I'm gonna pin that as a future podcast because the way that parents use creative lies to get their kids to behave, especially because there's so many that regard food.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think that'd be such a fun thing to talk about, like for a full hour, just because like some people don't like it, and that's fair. Like it is kind of manipulating a kid, but.
I mean, other thing.
And sometimes you gotta manipulate a kid. They're not gonna listen to you otherwise.
And I mean, the other thing to remember too is that like a lot of those stories, like folklore, fairy tales, whatever you want to call them, a lot of them have really similar themes of like hey kids, don't run off into the big, dark, scary woods, otherwise X Y Z will happen. Because you can't just tell your kids, oh yeah, don't go into that woods, or else a pack of wolves might come across you and might think you're a threat. No, I mean you got to terrify them with something a heck of a lot worse. And so
Yeah,
like
otherwise you've just made them incredibly curious.
Right.
exactly. And I just remember this one story I read. It was like a German one, and it was about a little boy named August who wouldn't finish his soup, and because he wouldn't finish his soup and refused to eat because he didn't like it, he shriveled up and died. Which which I
Oh.
mean, which in like a lower class family where maybe you're having the same meal 3 times a day, 6 days a week, you really can't afford not to eat it just because you don't like it. So I mean, it's interesting stuff. If you couldn't tell, I'm a history major, so this kind of thing fascinates me. But yeah,
Mhm.
but I mean the way in which like food and stories have played into the development and shaping of human cultures is just an infinitely fascinating, just like bottomless pit of things to jump into and learn about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
history when taught in the right context, like by the right people, is so fascinating. And for the first half of my life, I didn't find that often. No shame to my teachers, but like they didn't make history very interesting.
I,
And for a while, I really hated it. And then I became an art history minor, just like by happenstance. And I like history in that context is awesome to me.
mhm,
So, like, when it's put the right way, history is so cool. And honestly, I think I just got sick about learning about American history as well
that's fair.
and like related
Hmm.
things. Like, what I can remember is war, presidents, and Tenochtitlan. And that's what I remember from history.
uh, yeah, one of my history.
Gilgamesh, there's another thing I
Yep,
can
there you
remember. But like, I could tell
Hmm.
you so much about like Michelangelo and Da Vinci and like, ugh, I love it.
go. Yeah, one of my history professors in college, he had a very, very intense hatred for the very concept of history textbooks.
Yeah.
Uh, Primarily because they were made not to like improve the education and the teaching history, but they're made as part of a textbook industry. And so it's a
Hmm.
matter of having all these critical reading questions, and about satisfying the people who and about satisfying people who actually will buy the books, making sure that it uses the terminology and displays the history that they want to demonstrate. And it's the case, unfortunately, that in a lot of history textbooks you'll have history that is just either you'll have heavily one-sided or slimmed down history in the interest of the publishing company or whoever else, or not the publishers, sorry, but like the curriculum planners or the curriculum committees, or whatever the case, where they might not want a book that teaches students, say, I don't know, about the Civil War and the things it was about, or whatever the case. But I'm dipping into my current grad school classes, and I don't want to get topic, but
Yeah, textbooks lose the magic, I think. Like the absolute like love and entertainment that history has. Like history is in many cases very funny.
I history it's that phrase, reality is stranger than fiction. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
things in history that you simply could not make up, and it's just absolutely insane sometimes. It's insane sometimes, the things that just happened in history. They just
Yeah.
happened.
And the
Like,
things that happened out of spite, which is a lot of the art world, because that is where like I know the most about history. Like the statue of David was made out of like one of the hardest to carve rocks because someone said he couldn't do it and he said watch me. And then
Amazing.
like do you know how many peons are in on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel because he was pissed off with the church? Like it's amazing.
uh,
So many peons.
it's mm, I do.
I that was derailed, but that was
No, no,
history
no.
is funny when you look at the right stuff,
I,
and I think we don't learn enough of the fun stuff
I,
early on.
if you want one more fun thing, America,
Sure.
like America before the 1920s was one of the most like alcohol consuming nations on the planet. And when you know that fact, certain snippets of like American history make so much more sense.
Hmm.
Like the time two senators in a Senate session got into a fist fight with each other. and what and one of the guys was beating up the other with a cane. And the guy's supporters sent him more canes afterward. It's absolutely insane. Just but
That's awesome.
uh,
Not to, because this was a great tangent,
but
but
we
I know you
probably
have a
get back on
story
topic.
that like initiated me wanting you on this podcast because you mentioned it in a D&D game. You had an airplane story, and we are reaching the end of it. So I'd like to finish because I'm very curious about the story that we have not gotten into, and I have heard about 4 times now.
Of course. Right. Right. So I was on a plane, and I forget exactly when and where I was flying, but it doesn't really matter. I was on a plane, and I was separated from the rest of my like travel party. It was me sitting next to a stranger, and the stranger decided to watch Brave on their tablet during the flight. Fair enough. You want
Nice. Good choice.
Okay, yep, fair enough. You want to see Merida do her thing and her mother bear whole situation play out. Fair enough.
Mhm.
And and you know how you can like buy food at airports. You can like sit down for meals and stuff and whatever. They have like
Yeah.
so they got like burger joints. They've got those little kiosks sometimes with like little prepackaged salads or like little deli sandwiches so you can have them on the run, all that kind of stuff. Well, I suppose understandably, this woman, wanted to get some like quasi real food as opposed to like whatever they were serving mid-flight. And so now, me personally, I would probably opt for just like a little deli sandwich or just something packaged. This woman pulls out a whole freaking burger, specifically, and this is the bit that's like ingrained in my head. You know those like gray styrofoam like cardboard containers, the gray ones that if you spill any sort of drop of liquid on them, they just like immediately like wilt almost.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was in one of those.
Oh, no.
And and of course, there's no way to eat any kind of burger in any graceful manner, let alone when you're on an airplane when your elbow room is non-existent. So this woman is just eating this whole freaking burger directly
Ugh.
next to me while watching the movie Brave. And I think the reason why Shannon in particular thinks this story is funny is because I prefaced it by saying that this story is one of the reasons why I have kind of this like admittedly irrational, completely irrational like distrust or just anxiety about Brave and why I still haven't seen it.
I love that you connected to Brave. Oh my god, that's awesome. I think
Oh,
Brave is one
man.
of Shannon's favorite Disney movies too.
It's up there for sure. It's just
Her name in my phone was
I know it's
Merida for
like
years.
that's right. I think we had taken one of those like BuzzFeed quizzes when we were like, "What
Yeah.
princess are you?" And I got Merida and had a period of my life where I really enjoyed that movie. So it's just I know that's a traumatic burger experience, but it's so funny that it's just like intrinsically linked to Brave now.
It's just because there are 3 things I remember most vividly about that experience. One of them is the smell of someone eating a burger in again in an airplane fuselage that doesn't have very good air circulation.
Yeah, you're in
The
a
second
closed
thing,
environment.
exactly, and the second thing is that gray wilting container it came in,
Hmm.
and three is the fact that they were watching Brave, and it is just inextricably tied with the experience.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
man.
Because, like, that burger was cold, for sure.
I d-
And can
Oh,
you imagine how soggy that bottom bun probably was? Or if it wasn't soggy, then that burger was dry as a puck.
It was definitely not dry. I can tell you that. It was definitely
Ugh.
not dry.
Oh,
Yeah.
cold, wet bread. Ugh.
Nope.
I mean, power
Not a
to
women
her. I
day.
hope she enjoyed that burger so much. But, Shannon, did I tell you my Dramamine story coming home from New York?
You didn't, but I also know we need to stop in a couple of minutes. So
Okay. This is super quick. On the way to New York, I took a 5-hour bus ride. I felt like crap because I get motion sickness on buses, and I conveniently forgot because I haven't taken a bus in years. And I was like, this sucks. I had a terrible time going there. I had to stare forward the whole time. And then coming back, I was like, oh, I'll get like motion sickness like medicine because they have that. And I took it, and I had the most zen ride home. It was amazing. You would have thought I was high as a kite. I slept the whole way. I was having a great time. I didn't even care how squashed I was on the bus. I fell asleep on Noah's shoulder, and I felt so bad because he was so uncomfortable. He's like, you good? Because he knows how the ride there went. And I'm like, dude, cloud 9. It was awesome. Slept like a baby. But yeah, there's that.
Wild.
I couldn't eat either way because the way there I felt sick and the way back I was sleeping. But yeah, we brought snacks and all, and they were useless to me both ways. But
Well,
there is that.
Well, what a wild ride we've all been on.
Indeed.
First on the ground, in the air, on a bus.
Yeah. If anyone has any fun travel stories to tell us, let me know somewhere. TikTok's probably the easiest place that has a comment section. But my email is like also in the description for some reason, so there's that too. Sorry there was no episode last week. I messed it up, and my voice was not in the recording, so we'll be re-recording and coming back with that episode. But this is that. Thank you both for coming, even though Shannon, you come all the time. Thank you again for continuing this. It was nice talking to y'all.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hopefully this isn't the last time. We love return guests. Go enjoy some nice vegetarian soup this week.
Oh, I'll be sure to.
Simmer clothes come out in April. Go check that out.
Woohoo!
On Instagram, TikTok, all the things. They're in the description. If you're on Spotify, I don't know where the description is. My bad. Sorry. I hit the wrong button.